At 35,000 feet above the ground, Captain Sarah Mitchell makes a split-second decision that will determine the fate of 289 passengers. The warning lights are flashing. The co-pilot's hands grip the controls, and in that moment, she becomes one of the only 5% of female pilots commanding commercial aircraft in American skies. This is her story. This is a day you've never seen before. The alarm clock reads 3:47 a.m. Most of America is still asleep, but for Captain Sarah Mitchell, this is just another Tuesday morning. She's been flying for Delta Airlines for 12 years, and today, she's commanding Flight 2847 from Atlanta to Los Angeles, a 6-hour journey that carries more responsibility than most people will experience in their entire careers. Sarah rolls out of bed in her modest Atlanta suburb home. Her husband, Mark, a high school teacher, is still sleeping. Their 2 daughters, Emma and Lily, won't wake up for another 3 hours. This is the reality that nobody talks about when they imagine the glamorous life of an airline pilot. The missed birthdays, the holidays spent in hotel rooms, the sunrise flights that mean leaving home while your family dreams. But Sarah wouldn't trade it for anything, because every time she walks through that cockpit door, she's not just flying a plane, she's proving that the sky has no gender. By 4:15 a.m., Sarah is dressed in her crisp Delta uniform, 4 stripes on her shoulders, the universal symbol of a captain's authority. She makes herself a strong cup of coffee, checks her flight bag one more time, and glances at the family photo on her kitchen counter. Emma drew her a picture last week. My mom, the superhero pilot. It's taped to the refrigerator, and every morning, it reminds her why she does this. The drive to Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport takes 35 minutes in the pre-dawn darkness. Sarah listens to a podcast about aviation safety. She's always learning, always improving. In this industry, complacency isn't just unprofessional, it's dangerous. At 5:10 a.m., she pulls into the employee parking lot. The airport is already buzzing with activity. Baggage handlers load cargo, ground crew prepares aircraft, and somewhere in this massive operation, 289 people are about to trust Sarah Mitchell with their lives. She heads straight to the crew briefing room. Her first officer today is Jake Thompson, a 28-year-old pilot with 3 years of experience. When he sees Sarah, his face lights up. Captain Mitchell, great to be flying with you again. This is the respect Sarah has earned, not given. She remembers her early days when some co-pilots would second-guess her decisions, when passengers would do a double-take seeing a woman in the captain's seat, when gate agents would assume she was a flight attendant. Those days still happen, but less frequently now. The briefing begins at 5:30 a.m. sharp. The flight dispatcher reviews the route. Atlanta to Los Angeles, approximately 5 hours and 48 minutes of flight time. Weather looks good, clear skies over most of the country, with some light turbulence expected over the Rockies. Fuel calculations are checked. Alternate airports are confirmed. Nothing is left to chance. Sarah reviews the paperwork with the intensity of a surgeon before an operation. Weight and balance, maintenance logs, NOTAM's notices to airmen about potential hazards along the route. Her eyes scan every detail. This Boeing 767 has been in service for 14 years, but it's meticulously maintained. Still, she needs to see everything for herself. At 6:20 a.m., Sarah and Jake walk across the tarmac to their aircraft. The sun is just beginning to peek over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. This is Sarah's favorite moment, the quiet before the controlled chaos of boarding begins. She conducts her exterior walk-around inspection, checking the fuselage, wings, engines, and landing gear. Her hands run along surfaces, checking for anything unusual. This aircraft is her responsibility now. These aren't just passengers, they're people. Parents traveling to see their children, business people heading to important meetings, families starting vacations, all trusting her judgment. Inside the cockpit, the pre-flight checklist begins. Switches are flipped, systems are tested, radio frequencies are set. The cockpit of a modern airliner has over 300 switches, buttons, and controls. Sarah knows every single one intimately. Hydraulic pressure, Jake calls out. Checked and normal, Sarah responds. Fuel quantity, 46,800 pounds, confirmed. This call and response continues for 15 minutes. Aviation safety is built on redundancy and verification. Every item matters. At 7 a.m., passengers begin boarding. Sarah makes her routine walk through the cabin, greeting passengers with a warm smile. She knows this simple gesture matters. When people see their captain, especially when that captain is a woman, it builds confidence. A little girl, maybe 7 years old, tugs on her mother's sleeve. "Mommy, look, the pilot is a lady." Sarah kneels down. "That's right. Would you like to see the cockpit after we land?" The girl's eyes go wide. "Really? Really? What's your name?" "Jessica." "Well, Jessica, maybe one day you'll be sitting in this seat too." The mother mouths thank you as they continue down the aisle. These moments, these small interactions are why representation matters. Sarah never had a female pilot to look up to when she was young. She's determined to be that role model for the next generation. By 7:45 a.m., all passengers are seated. The cabin crew completes their safety checks. Sarah receives clearance from ground control to push back from the gate. Delta 2847, "You're cleared to push and start." The voice crackles through her headset. "Cleared to push and start." Delta 2847, Sarah confirms. The pushback tug slowly moves the massive aircraft away from the gate. Engines spool up with that distinctive whine. Sarah's hands move across the controls with practiced precision. She's done this thousands of times, but she never loses focus. Every flight is unique. Every flight demands respect. The taxi to runway to 7R takes 12 minutes. The aircraft rolls past dozens of other planes, the constant ballet of one of the world's busiest airports. Sarah communicates with ground control, following the yellow taxiway lines perfectly. Delta 2847, "Hold short of runway to 7R, air traffic control instructs." They wait, and American Airlines 737 lands, its tires squealing as they touch the pavement. Then it's their turn. Delta 2847, "Runway to 7R, cleared for takeoff." Sarah's right hand advances the throttles. The engines roar to life, pushing 63,000 pounds of thrust. The Boeing 767, loaded with fuel and passengers, accelerates down the runway. 80 knots, Jake calls out. "Check," Sarah responds. "V1, this is the decision speed, the point of no return." "Rotate." Sarah gently pulls back on the yoke. The nose lifts. The main landing gear leaves the runway. And just like that, they're airborne. Flight 2847 is officially in the air. The climb is smooth. Atlanta's skyline spreads below them, growing smaller by the second. Sarah retracts the landing gear, adjusts the flaps, and follows the departure procedure precisely. Delta 2847, contact Atlanta departure on 124.3. 124.3. Delta 2847, good day. They climb through 10,000 feet. The seatbelt sign remains on as they continue ascending. Sarah's eyes constantly scan the instrument's altitude, airspeed, heading, vertical speed. Everything is operating perfectly, but she never stops monitoring. At 18,000 feet, they enter the flight, levels the altitude where all aircraft fly on standard pressure settings. Sarah continues the climb to their cruising altitude of 37,000 feet. The autopilot is engaged, but that doesn't mean Sarah is passive. She's constantly managing, monitoring, and making micro adjustments. At 37,000 feet, the ride smooths out. They're now cruising at 530 miles per hour, covering ground faster than most people can imagine. Below, America spreads out like a living map. They cross over Alabama, then Mississippi, then Arkansas. This is when Sarah allows herself a brief moment of reflection. She thinks about her journey to this seat. Growing up in rural Ohio, she was obsessed with airplanes. Her father took her to an air show when she was 8, and she was hooked. But when she told people she wanted to be a pilot, the reactions were mixed. "That's a man's job, sweetie. Maybe you could be a flight attendant instead." Do they even let women fly commercial planes? They did, they do. But when Sarah entered flight school in 2001, she was one of only 3 women in her class of 45 students. The challenges were real, the doubt from instructors, the assumptions from fellow students, the constant feeling that she had to be twice as good to be considered half as capable. But she persevered. She earned her private pilot license, then her instrument rating, then her commercial license. She logged hours as a flight instructor, then flew cargo planes for a regional airline. Every hour in the logbook was earned through determination and skill. Her first interview with Delta was in 2011. The interview panel was all men. One of them asked, "How will you handle the physical demands of this job?" She knew what he was really asking. She answered professionally, but firmly, the same way. "I've handled them for the past 2,000 flight hours with competence and professionalism." She got the job. The cockpit radio crackles. Delta 2847, Kansas City Center. Traffic at your 2 o'clock. 5 miles, opposite direction. 36,000 feet. Sarah scans the sky. She spots the other aircraft, a small blip in the distance. Traffic in sight. Delta 2847. This is the reality of commercial aviation. It's not glamorous. It's not always exciting. It's hours of careful monitoring, constant communication, and unwavering attention to detail. But Sarah loves it. They're over Colorado when it happens. A master caution light illuminates. Sarah's eyes snap to the warning. Hydraulic system pressure dropping in System A. "I've got a hydraulic issue," she says calmly to Jake. This is not an emergency yet. Modern aircraft have multiple redundant systems, but it requires immediate attention. Sarah pulls out the quick reference handbook, following the checklist precisely. Hydraulic pressure is at 1,200 psi and falling. Jake reports. Normal is 3,000 psi. Sarah's mind is already working through scenarios. They can fly on hydraulic B and C systems alone if necessary. But if this is a leak, it could get worse. She needs information. Get maintenance on the radio. She instructs Jake. "I want to know if this aircraft has any history with hydraulic A issues," while Jake contacts maintenance via ACARS, the aircraft's text messaging system. Sarah reviews their options. Denver is 180 miles ahead. Las Vegas is an hour away. Los Angeles is their destination. Where should they divert if this escalates? The maintenance team responds quickly. This aircraft did have a hydraulic pump replaced 6 months ago. The new pump has been operating normally since then. They advise monitoring the pressure. Sarah makes her decision. "We continue to Los Angeles, but I want continuous monitoring of that system. If pressure drops below 800 psi, we're diverting to Las Vegas immediately." This is captainship, not panicking, gathering information, making informed decisions, managing risk. For the next hour, Sarah watches that hydraulic gauge like a hawk. The pressure stabilizes at 1,100 psi. Not normal, but not critical. The system is holding. She makes a PA announcement to the passengers, her voice calm and reassuring. "Folks, this is Captain Mitchell from the flight deck. We're experiencing a minor technical issue with one of our hydraulic systems. This is not a safety concern. We have multiple backup systems, and everything is operating normally. However, as a precaution, we've requested priority handling when we land in Los Angeles. You might hear emergency vehicles near the aircraft after we land. This is standard procedure, and there's no cause for concern. We'll have you at the gate safely and on time. Thank you for your patience." As they begin their descent into Los Angeles, Sarah briefs Jake on the landing plan. With the hydraulic issue, she makes a slightly gentler landing than usual, reducing stress on the systems. The mountains around LA come into view. The sprawling city stretches to the horizon. LAX approach control vectors them for runway to Farrell. Delta 2847, descend and maintain 7,000 feet. Reduce speed to 210 knots. Sarah acknowledges and begins the descent. The autopilot is still engaged, but she's ready to take over manually if needed. The hydraulic pressure has held steady at 1,100 psi for the past 90 minutes. She's confident they'll land safely. At 5,000 feet, they're cleared for the visual approach. Sarah disconnects the autopilot. From here, she's hand-flying the aircraft. Her hands and feet work in coordination, small movements on the yoke, gentle pressure on the rudder pedals. The Boeing 767 responds precisely. Landing gear down, she commands. Jake moves the lever. 3 green lights illuminate nose gear, left main, right main. All locked in position. Gear down and locked. 3 green. The runway comes into view. 12,000 feet of concrete, perfectly aligned. Sarah adjusts her approach speed. The aircraft glides down the glide slope, descending at 700 feet per minute. At 50 feet above the runway, Sarah begins the flare, gently pulling back on the yoke, raising the nose, allowing the aircraft to settle onto the runway. The main wheels touch first, a slight chirp of rubber on concrete, then the nose gear settles. Perfect landing. Sarah deploys the thrust reversers, and 126,000 pounds of thrust now work to slow the aircraft. The brakes engage smoothly thanks to hydraulic systems B and C working perfectly. Nice landing, Captain, Jake says with genuine admiration. Team effort, Sarah responds, because that's what it is. Every successful flight is a team effort. Pilots, flight attendants, maintenance crews, air traffic controllers, ground staff, all working together seamlessly. They taxi to the gate. As promised, fire trucks follow at a distance, standard procedure for any aircraft, reporting a system issue. But there's no emergency. Everything went according to plan. At the gate, passengers deplane. Many don't even realize they were on a flight with a technical issue. That's how it should be. Pilots exist to make flying feel routine, even when it's anything but. Little Jessica, the girl from earlier, stops at the cockpit door with her mother. That was so cool, she exclaims. Sarah gives her a pair of plastic wings, the kind airlines give to young passengers. Keep reaching for the sky, Jessica. No dream is too big. After all passengers deplane, Sarah completes the shutdown checklist. She writes a detailed maintenance report about the hydraulic issue. The maintenance team will inspect the aircraft before it flies again. Sarah and Jake debrief. They review the flight, discuss what went well, and how they handled the hydraulic issue. This is how pilots improve. Constant learning, honest assessment. You handled that perfectly, Jake tells her. The way you stayed calm, made decisions quickly but carefully. That's why you're a captain. Sarah smiles. And that's why we train. So when something goes wrong, it becomes just another procedure. It's 2:30 p.m. Pacific time when Sarah finally checks into her hotel near LAX. She has a 30-hour layover before her return flight to Atlanta. Tomorrow morning, some pilots go sightseeing during layovers. Sarah usually just rests. Flying is mentally exhausting, even when everything goes right. She video calls Mark and the girls. Emma tells her about her soccer game. Lily shows her a science project. These moments, these connections make the time away bearable. Mark is incredibly supportive, but she knows it's not easy for him either. Being married to a pilot means being both a partner and a single parent. When are you coming home, Mommy? Lily asks. Tomorrow night, sweetheart, and then I'm off for 3 whole days. After the call, Sarah sits by the hotel window, looking out at the aircraft taking off from LAX. Each one carries a story. Passengers with dreams, fears, destinations, and in each cockpit, pilots like her doing the job they love, carrying the responsibility they've earned. She thinks about the statistics. Out of approximately 160,000 pilots in the United States, only about 8,000 are women. That's 5%. In commercial aviation, the numbers are even more skewed. Female captains at major airlines, less than 2%. But things are changing. Slowly, organizations like Women in Aviation International are inspiring young girls. Airlines are actively recruiting female pilots. Flight schools are seeing more women enroll. Sarah knows she's more than just a pilot. She's a role model. She's proof. She's a symbol that the cockpit isn't a boys' club, it's a meritocracy where skill, dedication, and passion are what matter. Tomorrow, she flight 2848 back to Atlanta. She go through the same routines, the same checklists, the same responsibilities, and she do it with the same professionalism and competence that she brings to every flight, because that's what pilots do. They show up, they prepare, they execute, they bring people home safely. And Sarah Mitchell, she's one of the best. This is the reality of being a female commercial airline pilot in America. It's not about fighting for recognition or breaking barriers. Anymore, it's about being so undeniably skilled that gender becomes irrelevant. It's about inspiring the next generation of girls who look up at the sky and dream of flying. To every Jessica out there watching, this the little girls who dream of becoming pilots, you can do this. The sky isn't just for boys. It never was. It's for anyone with the passion, dedication, and courage to reach for it. And to everyone else, next time you board an aircraft, remember, the person in the captain's seat might just be someone like Sarah Mitchell, someone who's earned every stripe on her shoulders, someone who's proving every single day that excellence has no gender. If this story inspired you, hit that like button and drop a comment below. What did you think? Would you feel confident flying with a female captain? Share your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe to Silent Warriors for more untold stories of incredible people doing extraordinary things. We're bringing you the stories that need to be heard. Safe travels, everyone, and remember, the sky is just the beginning.